Hello everybody, welcome into my latest live broadcast. It is March the 1st, 2022. It's Tuesday. Welcome in. Today I have what I hope to be a very quick repair. Fingers crossed. This customer is someone I've known for a very long time, used to be my neighbor, and I built a computer for them, and then they since had me upgrade it. Think, or this might be the first computer they got from me. I can't remember anymore because I built this computer in February of 2015. I thought I had a build video on it, but apparently I don't. But you can see that these have been 8-year builds that I've been building now for some time. In fact, based on how this customer uses this computer, I can foresee them using this through the end of Windows 10's life cycle. That would make this a 10-year build. Actually be about a 10.5-year build if you really want to do the math. That's built in February 2015. Windows 10 expires October 14th, 2025. That's a 10.5-year build. And you know, when you consider what the price was, which was a bargain, when you break it down, cost per year, cost per month, cost per day, it's literally costing them pennies per day with this build. Now, this customer apparently has a little bad luck because when I dropped the computer off back in February of 2015, within the first 2 days, the EVGA power supply that I had in there died for no apparent reason, just DOA. It's the last time I've seen, I think, a DOA EVGA power supply. And what I did is I replaced it. I didn't know if I got a bad batch of EVGA power supplies, so I took a power supply that I had, one of the last of the Antec power supplies with the rear case fan, and I knew those were good, and I just went over to their house and installed it, and it's been working fine ever since. Now here we are 7 years later, and they had a power outage, or the power went out across the house, and when power was restored, the computer is dead as a doorknob. So I said, well, I could bring a power supply with me and swap it out at your house, or if you'd like, I'll pick it up and bring it back, bring it back here, and then I can kind of go through it with a fine-tooth comb and tune it up and blow all the dust out of it. So they were all keen to have me do that, so I stopped by earlier this afternoon and picked the machine up. I've already had it outside with the leaf blower and got all the dust out of it, and it was dusty. And I put the cover back on so you know we have a nice clean start here, but we'll pull the cover off and show you the insides. $10 comes in from Barry Klein. He says, don't waste time on this problem. Pilot light went out. Access power supply fan opening and relight it with a match. Problem solved. Good evening, everyone. Well, thanks, Barry, the man with all the answers. I don't have any matches. Maybe I can rub 2 sticks together really quick. Buck says, "G'day, Carrie. Hope you're well, mate." G'day, Buck. Kelly Stewart says, "Good evening." Good evening, Carrie in chat. There's Scott Hallinan saying, "Great to see you in another riveting lesson on PCs." Loves it. And Surfing the Net Computer Repair says, "Hello." Welcome in, everybody. Sarge Tech and Spats90 and Frank Jimmy. Welcome in, guys, and let's go ahead and pull the cover off, and hopefully this is a quick repair. So we're going to pretend like I didn't do this earlier, like 10 minutes ago. But I didn't do anything other than blow the dust out of it with the leaf blower, so what you're about to see is exactly the way I built it. Nobody has had the cover off the entire time. So it is pristine as it was built, unmolested. I gotta find a place to put this cover. So I'll put it over here. I'm running out of room here. I'm getting buried in computers. All right. You can see the motherboard we use here is a lot smaller. Back in this era in 2015, these little boards had everything you needed: audio, Ethernet, VGA, DVI built in with DisplayPort and HDMI outputs. And if I take a look at the model, it's a Gigabyte H81M HD3. Now, if it were anybody else, I'd say it's time to upgrade. But these folks, it's just a home use computer. It's mostly used for email and Microsoft Word, some newsletters, things like that. And yeah, there's no reason for them to have to upgrade it. I think they can ride out Windows 10 until it expires, like I mentioned, in October of 2025. John Williams says hello. There's Patrick Rusaw. Welcome in, everybody. Frank Jimmy says he sees ketchup and mustard. Yeah, that's what we call those red and yellow power supply cables. That's how they used to make them back in the day. And for some reason, I had blue nylon zip ties. I don't know why. But again, customer has never taken the panels off. They don't see them. But at least I use blue all the way around, even blue RAM. Look at me matching black and blue. All right, so what I want to do is verify the customer problem. So we're going to go ahead and plug power into it. Nothing else, just power, and we'll hit the power button, and we'll verify this thing is going to work exactly the same as it's doing right now. If I hit the power button now, obviously there's no power. And when I plug the power in, it'll behave exactly the same way. At least I expect it will. Let's give it a shot. Power supply is in the on position, and nothing. Could be a bad power button, right? We've seen that before, where we had a machine come in that had a bad reset button. And it's possible it has a bad power button. However, I know this power supply is pretty old. And given that it was a power outage across the entire house, all signs are pointing to the very first thing I check is the power supply. So we'll flip the switch off, pull the plug, and we're going to pull the power connector off the board here and up here on the CPU power. Now this is just an Antec 430 watt power supply. I don't know if this has a date of manufacture on it, but I would put it somewhere around 2012, I would think. This had to be one of the last ones I had in inventory. I think that's the last Antec power supply I've used before moving completely to EVGA. It's 80 plus bronze, so they were still rating them at 80 plus whenever this was. But I don't see a build date on it, on the power supply itself. But anyway, I'm not going to take the power supply out until I verify that's the problem. So I've got a 450 watt EVGA power supply that I use here for testing, and that's fine. We'll use it. I want to make sure this customer gets a good power supply, and if I open a brand new one out of the box, you know, we don't know what's going to happen. So we'll stick with a known good power supply. And if this works, this is an EVGA 450 bronze, I'll just pop it in there and swap it out. Job done. So place your bets, everybody. Who thinks it's the power supply and who thinks it's something else? Just tuck that out of the way. We'll move this up here. And CPU power. Yep, CPU power right there. Clip goes to the outer edge. I'm going to drop that cable down behind the motherboard tray because it's in my way. You'll see we have the stock fan, stock fans on the case as well. None of these fans have ever needed to be replaced. We're assuming it powers on and the fans turn. But I haven't had any complaints about the fans. All I have is it won't turn on. So that's what we're going off of. So if I plug this in now, flip the switch to on. This must be the power supply that was sent by Patrick Rusaw because it's got the red and green dots on it. Let's go ahead and hit the power button, and it powers up. So there's your fastest diagnosis and repair right there. We're just putting logic together. Power outage, computer stops working, probably not a power switch, probably not a bad motherboard, although it could be. If the power voltage spiked rather through the power supply and into the board, and who knows what it could toast. The front fan I never hook up, it's kept as a spare. I won't say never, I only hook up the front fan if there's a video card to cool. We're using integrated graphics here. We've got a 2.5-inch Samsung solid state drive in there that was installed 7 years ago and running solid. All these concerns of solid state drives running out of write cycles and such under normal usage, they'll last about 70 years. It's the extreme users are the ones that might experience a write failure. A solid state drive, when it runs out of write cycles, it doesn't fail. It just becomes read-only, that's all. So people make a big deal out of their fears, but not necessarily out of experience, because I've never met anybody in my life who's ever had a solid state drive run out of write cycles. Maybe if we live long enough, we'll see it, or if somebody just beats the crap out of it long enough, they'll get it there if they wanted to. You could make it happen, but just through normal usage for a regular user, and even most enthusiasts wouldn't see an issue with running out of write cycles. And there's your evidence right there. There's proof. So I don't have any video or keyboard or mouse hooked up because I just want to make sure it's getting power. I don't necessarily want to show the customer's desktop. I don't know what they got going on there, but what I'm going to do on this machine is clean up the temp files, make sure all the Windows updates are installed, make sure all the latest drivers are installed. I'll run Uncle Carrie's Windows 10 Optimizer on it. I'll make sure to scan it with Malwarebytes. I think they're just running Windows Defender, but if they've got Malwarebytes, I'll make sure that's updated as well. I'll look through the add remove, the apps area to see what programs are installed. If there's anything like add-ons from downloads, like McAfee Safe Scan and stuff like that, I'll take that stuff out. And I'm not a big fan of CCleaner, but I might run CCleaner on a machine this old just to wipe out temp files that the Windows temp file remover doesn't catch. Other than that, I'm sure there's not going to be a BIOS update on this, but I'll check. That's pretty much it. So for once, you get to see where experience comes into play and dealing with a familiar problem versus an unfamiliar problem. And this is what keeps me in the industry, quite honestly. If I could solve every computer problem this quickly, I probably wouldn't want to do this job anymore, because that would be very boring. So it's a nice mixture of frustration with new problems and boring with familiar problems. If I tap the power button, hopefully that'll cycle down the power. Yeah, you'll see the fans have stopped turning. And we're going to have to change power supply out. And there you have it. Super easy, barely an inconvenience. But it will take probably, I would guess 3 hours of cleanup on this to do between swapping out the power supply, redoing the cable management just on the power supply. As you can see, that's the reason I separate out the cable management from the power supply from everything else, except these two nylon zip ties right here. So when I run the new motherboard power connector, I'll put 2 big zip ties there. And take all the extra cables and I just zip tie them down here on the bottom of the case. And that's that. If anybody has any technical questions for me, fire away. I'll stick around long enough till your questions cease, and then we'll wrap it up for the night. So this will be a quick one for once in my life. Corey said we've had many solid state drive fails on our enterprise SAN. Well, yeah, enterprise is a heavy usage. The storage area network especially, but that's a very particular use, enterprise use, that, let's face it, enterprises aren't looking to me for advice, right? They've got an IT department. And yeah, you might have got a bad batch, who knows? But generally speaking, if the solid state drives were designed for storage area networks at an enterprise level, they should last much, much longer. I'm sure they were covered under warranty. Ryan Grady says, hey, Carrie and chat. Hey, Ryan, speaking of Ryan, guess what I got today? Ryan was so kind as he saw I had an item on my wish list over at Amazon, and it's a forensic combo dock. It looks like this, and this is for data recovery purposes. So I am super excited to use it. I just cut the tape on the box just a few minutes before going live. I haven't even taken the thing out of its packaging yet. It's very similar if you saw me using the YB Tech drive eraser for wiping out drives securely that were going to be resold. This does all that and more, I understand, with a emphasis on forensics, which is forensics would be data recovery, critical data recovery, like in lawsuits and legal matters. So thank you, Ryan Grady, for sending it. It's very generous of you to send that my way. I've been wanting one of those. And, you know, one of these days when I have some time, I'll take it out and play with it, unless I have a repair job show up where I need it. So that, we'll see which one happens first. Data recovery isn't exactly my wheelhouse, to put it lightly. But if it's an easy data recovery, just having a tool like that could be all I need. David Officer with $5 Canadian contributed. Thank you, David. And Corey Mann says, yes, all those SSDs that failed were replaced under warranty. And an enterprise would always have a backup. You just swap the drive out, and your IT department's getting paid anyway, so keep them busy. John Williams wants to know if Marvin got his new computer yet. No, Marvin has another 2 terabyte Samsung Evo he wants me to put in NVMe drive. And so I saw Marvin earlier today and picked that up along with some other parts he has left over. And I heard from Tony at Silverstone regarding that case. And I guess those brackets that I didn't know what they were for, they're for securing a 30 series graphics card, as was a requirement from NVIDIA or something. And the filter is a replacement for the top of the case where there's a sound dampening material. I guess you remove the sound dampening material and replace it with the filter if you need airflow through there, like for a liquid cooler radiator. And I was right about the area for the 2.5-inch drives, in addition to the spots it's already got on the back of the motherboard tray. And Tony thought it was a shame that the case has that Type-C connector, but the motherboard doesn't support it, and wants to send me a Silverstone add-in card. It's a USB add-in card that will enable us to have an internal header for USB 3.2 built into the card that just plugs into a PCI slot. Now, I don't know if Marvin has a need for that, but it's a great opportunity to showcase this part is available from Silverstone for others who might be in a similar situation and they want to add that. Where you've got a motherboard that doesn't support the Type-C 3.2 connector, but your case does. So you just plug this card into a little by one slot, you know, or whatever it is, and you're good to go. It's super easy. You plug the cable from the motherboard, from the case into this little card, and then the card plugs in the board. So I think we'll go ahead and tell Tony to send us one of those. We'll get it installed along with his second 2 terabyte drive. I still have the cable management to do, which isn't very much. And then we'll take that over to Marvin, I'm thinking next week. So I'm super excited, and I think he is too. And then he's going to give me his laptop. He has an NVMe drive in the laptop he wants to upgrade to a 2 terabyte Samsung Evo Plus. So he gave me this is the third one now he's given me. We've already got one in his build. We're adding a second, and then the third one will be a replacement for the laptop. So we'll Cronus image or clone the Cronus clone the current NVMe to the new one, and then he also had a 2.5-inch mechanical 2 terabyte drive because the laptop has a 2.5-inch drive, and he wants me to upgrade that as well. But I'm going to upgrade him to a 2 terabyte 2.5-inch solid state drive instead. And then we'll just hold on to those 2 terabyte mechanical 2.5-inch drives for future projects. There's Temp offering $5 Australian. Thank you, Temp. Tony9782 wants to know my thoughts on IT certifications, internships, apprenticeships, or college. There's no right answer. Basically, whatever is appealing to you. The certifications, in my opinion, should only be taken if they're required for a job. So if you're applying for jobs in IT and you're finding a lot of them are requiring a cert, then go get the cert. But to have a cert that nobody's asking for is a waste of time and money. With regards to college or apprenticeships or internships, that's really up to you and what opportunities, if any, exist around you. I wouldn't do an internship for more than a year. After a year, you should be working and getting paid. But you really should get a year of real work experience before you call yourself a professional. And or even just a tech, in my opinion. And I think working for a year in the field is better than any school you can take, unless you want to go into network administration or architecture, that sort of thing. Network architecture, some of those things you're going to want to go to college for. However, probably not the right way to start. That seems like something you would grow into. You have to sort of get into the career and decide if that's where you want to be. I would feel sorry for somebody who invested so much time and money into an education only to get a job that they end up hating and you have to start over again. So I always advise get the job first. Make sure that's something you want to do. And then within the job there are lots of different fields from, as I mentioned, a server admin to a field technician, support desk, network engineer, SQL database management, website design, programming. It goes on and on and on and on and on. And there's endless certifications depending on what interests you. Each manufacturer of these enterprise level firewalls have certifications like Cisco and Juniper and such. And if that's right for you, only you are going to know that. William Cregan with a $5 contribution says, Kerry, have you ever converted an IDE to a compact flash in a vintage Pentium 1? No, I just don't have time for that. Some of these things are something that somebody has nothing else to do would do. I have a bunch of work. Imagine you're at McDonald's and there's a big line of people all waiting their turn to put their order in at the register. And you're asking the cook at McDonald's, has he ever played around with, mixing this sandwich with that sandwich? He's too busy working. He doesn't have time to do that, or she. That's all well and good if you want to, buy the sandwiches and combine them on your own time. But I got people waiting and time is of the essence. I wouldn't mess with anything that didn't run Windows 10 because I'm in business to make a profit. Those computers are security nightmares. They are very difficult to find parts for, and they're very, very slow. So if you're bored, you're a hobbyist, you're looking for something to do, have at it. But please keep in mind, I run a business, and what I'm trying to convey on my YouTube channel is what I don't see many other tech YouTube channels doing, and that is bringing in a practical and pragmatic mindset to the value of time and the value of money. I avoid unnecessary RGB and nonsense like that unless a customer absolutely insists. My preference is to spend that money on a better processor, more memory, more faster storage, or give it to somebody else who has more need than you. I see it as indulgence and gluttony while other people suffer with nothing, and it's a way of flexing that I personally find it embarrassing. The reason I have RGB on this computer next to me is because it's on YouTube and it attracts viewers. If this was my personal rig, it would not have any of that. But it's a showpiece and it's meant to be seen. I don't know many people that order that stuff and have a parade of people walking through their home like it's a museum to show off their lights on their computer. But that's just the way I am. I was born in a family that never had any money, and it's kind of stuck with who I am with regards to the value of money. And when it comes to business, because I don't have any employees, it comes down to the value of time. Would I rather watch a half an hour of TV and veg out? Or would I rather make $100 in that half hour getting some work done and helping somebody who's waiting? I'm the kind of guy, I want to help people, and I get a reward for doing it, which makes my life easier. And then because I struggled my family struggled financially, I never want to go back to those days. So I like to have a little bit put away just in case and make sure that I invest my money wisely. I'm not somebody who goes and buys expensive, silly things. Oh, I guess that would be nice to have so much money that I could do that. But I even feel guilty spending money, at the concessions at a movie theater because of how overpriced everything is. To go see a movie that's going to end up between tickets and popcorn and drinks is $50, $60. To me, that's a lot of money. And I could just stream the movie at home for free, get a better seat. I don't have to worry about anybody using their cell phone. I don't have to worry about the pandemic. It saves me a lot of money. And I think I have an overall better experience. But I know most YouTube tech channels are enthusiast driven, and so that kind of information is probably available at those other channels. But if you have questions about wanting to spend your money wisely on parts and or running a business, the rules that I have for running my computer business apply to just about any business. So they all pretty much suffer the same challenges and obstacles and benefits as well. So I'm trying to provide something here that I feel it's just not being covered very well in this arena of the tech realm here on YouTube. It's just all mostly enthusiasts who just have all day and no liability, no consequences. So that's well and good. There's nothing wrong with it, but there is another side to that coin if you choose to look at it. Jose Del Nido says hello. Welcome in, Jose. Paul1961 says hello. John Paul Bacon saying hello. Magna PC says, I agree about RGB being unnecessary, but it does sell gaming PCs quickly. Yet not in my market, it doesn't. If that's your market, so be it. My market is business. I would rather sell one business 100 machines than sell 100 consumers a computer each and have to deal with 100 different support nightmares and warranty nightmares potentially, from customers who buy once every few years. I could sell a corporation computers every month, and they're all in one place, so it's much easier to support it and make a lot more money. It's more consistent, and it's a lot less work as far as hooking up all that cable management and whatnot. That's got to go into the RGB, and any support calls that are related to the RGB. I have other things to do with my time that, I guess that sounds a little full of myself, but the reality is if you're at a grocery store and you've got your cart full of groceries and their computer system goes down, are you happy about it? How long are you going to wait before you abandon your shopping cart and take your business somewhere else? Suddenly, when it's affecting you, your whole perspective on it will change versus somebody who's just listening to what I'm saying. When it impacts you directly, you will likely not be very understanding about it. You'll likely not sit around waiting for them to figure out the problem. You might wait a little amount of time, but at some point, you're going to just go, I'm going to go to a different grocery store. I don't have time for this. And now you're going to sound like me. So before you judge me, think about it when it affects you. So, food for thought. Henry Tapper says hello from Thailand. Hey, Henry. Dennis Paulson join us. I see Marvin. Speaking of Marvin, he's in our chat room. Chad's Music Creation says, Carrie, if you ever want a special music track made, check out my SoundCloud and see what kind of genre you want. I can already tell you what I want. I want something that's percussion and like a lead guitar. Think of like the Seinfeld kind of thing, but I'd like it to be a little more modern. And it's got to be about 20 seconds long. So yeah, something upbeat and cheerful, modern, and just percussion and lead guitar. And ideally, it would start out as percussion, and then the lead guitar would introduce itself after a few seconds, not slam everything in at once. Keith Benjamin says, IT at our job are lifesavers. They answer 24 hours a day, amazing group of guys and gals. Well, that's why I say when it affects you, when you're the one who's impacted by a system being down, the attitude's very different over the value of time when it's your time. Revan Riley says, what was the worst ghost in the machine repair that you finally figured out after bashing your head against it for days? That has to be the Y3K problem that we all encountered that in the chat room and here with me together, where if the date was set to, in a gigabyte BIOS on some gigabyte boards, they weren't enforcing the date limits in the BIOS. And so someone fat-fingered 2021 and made it 3021 or something. And then Windows wouldn't install. And that led to somebody was building a computer following one of my videos, bought all the same parts, but they'd never built a computer before, and they bought a return motherboard from Amazon to save a few dollars, which I advise first-timers not to do. You should be a tech so you understand what to look for on return parts. You don't know why that part was returned. And that was the only part I think he bought used. And he ended up contacting me and asking me for help, and he had a bad I thought he might have had a bad media installation tool. I had him recreate the Windows 10 installation media and use a different flash drive, and he already had swapped his power supply, his motherboard, his RAM, even sent his CPU back and got a different one. Every single part was replaced. Every single part was replaced. But when he put the new board in, he fired it up in the Windows 10 install that was already on the SSD that froze up. When it started to continue the Windows 10 install on the first boot, the first thing it did was it went into the BIOS and switched the date back to the 3021 date or whatever it was. It doesn't tell you it's doing it. And so he unknowingly had bought a board that somebody fat-fingered. They probably couldn't get Windows 10 installed. They sent it back to Amazon. Amazon resold it as a return board for about $20 off. This guy gets it, tries his Windows 10 install, but he never fixed the date in the BIOS. He shouldn't have had to. And whoever did that shouldn't have had to go into the BIOS at all anyway, specifically not for changing the date. That will all take care of itself on its own. So they just created their own problem by trying to avoid a problem. Then someone else created their own problem by buying that board. And then when they took the whole system apart, got an RMA, sent the board back, got a new board, brand new board, put all the original, the parts that were the CPU, the solid state drive, the RAM, put all that back on the new board. As soon as they fire it up, Windows 10 tries to complete its install, and in doing so sets the BIOS date back to where it was. That was a real hair puller. Do you notice, getting a little bald back here? I think that's where I was pulling on my hair, trying to figure this out. Or scratching my head until I was getting blood. Rupen Yermayan contributes 10 Canadian dollars, and I'm sorry, I'm sure I'm not saying your name correctly. He says, see you Friday again. Did you get your Samsung S22 yet? Yeah, there it is. Interested to know because I'm in the market for a new phone as well. Battery is acting up. Yeah, I had a free upgrade to 256 gig. The S22 doesn't have a headphone jack, which I think kind of sucks because I like to keep a little headset in the car that doesn't have any Bluetooth, so I could just plug it in and talk hands-free. It's illegal to talk on your phone and drive in Phoenix. But I can't do that anymore. I'd have to get Bluetooth, and I use it so infrequently the battery will be drained on the Bluetooth. So much for that idea. And then the other issue is there's no memory card expansion on the S22. So you have to buy it with as much memory as you want. The default, I think, is 128, and you can get 256. And then on the Ultra, you can do 512 gig or 1 terabyte. But it's soldered on. You can't change it. And they do that obviously because they want you to spend more money on your phone. But they'll tell you it's because that memory is slower than the memory they use. But that depends what speed memory you buy. If you cheap out and you get cheap memory, and yeah, it's going to slow your phone down. So I don't know that that's a real excuse so much as they want to sell you a new phone. So, so far that's about it. Everything else is pretty much the same. Picture quality on the screen is better, the camera quality is better, but it wasn't bad on the S10. But it is a new battery, and so far it's doing a great job. So overall, I'm happy with it. It's noticeably heavier than the S10, but about the same as the S20. Rystar Man wants to know what I thought about the Silverstone case from last night. Oh, I thought I made it clear. I like it. I like it. Yeah. A lot of the Silverstone cases I have tested in the past have all been budget cases. They've been made of very thin material and just, were built to a price point. I feel like when Silverstone made this case, they said, let's make the quality job one and the price secondary. And on those other Silverstone cases, it was price first and quality second. So this Silverstone case is more money, but it's a lot more case. Even the feet on the bottom of it, the Corsair 200R, it's got these rubber feet and they fall off. They're just little rubber stickers. That Seta Q1 has real round, like furniture feet. They're not going anywhere. You get what you pay for. Yeah, I like it. Absolutely. If I didn't like it, I sure as heck wouldn't be giving it to Marvin. I want to make sure I give Marvin the best of what I've got. Angel contributes $10 and says, hello, everyone. Hey, Angel, thank you for that. And $10 from Planet Cryos. He says, buy a USB-C to 3.5 millimeter jack for your headphones. I have them for my S22 Ultra. I didn't even think of that. Thank you. Because what I can do, since I leave the headset in the car, is I can I can get one of those adapters and plug it into the headset instead of the phone, because I always have the phone with me. But there's two different cars. The Mustang's got Bluetooth. I don't care about that. The other car, it's old. It doesn't have that. So I could just reach over. I was plugging something into the phone anyway, so great idea. Thank you for that. Didn't even occur to me I could do that. And Jeff joins us in the chat room. Patrick Griswold said his notices S22 Plus gets a little warm at times. Not burning, but a little warm. Marvin says he likes to play Call of Duty 2 and newer. Or Wolfenstein. Now there's some old school games for you. Wolfenstein. Vern wants to know if I think that Silverstone case is a viable replacement for the 200R. No, I don't, because it's twice the money and it's twice the case. It's significantly larger and heavier. These computers, the 200Rs, are generally going to offices, and even when they go to consumers, like this one, it sits between the end of a desk and a wall on the floor. That Silverstone case is wider, like it's about like this. And as a result, look, it's got great airflow, it's got great acoustics, and it's built really well, but it's big. And by big, it's not tall, it's wide. And I think a lot of places aren't going to have room for it. It's going to be a tight fit. So for that reason, For most people, no. However, it meets all of the requirements I have with regards to what I want in a business case, and that it has no case window, it's built well. The price on it also, comes along with its size and quality. I don't want the cheapest thing, but I don't necessarily need something of that caliber either for my business clients, unless we were building a server, something like that, where we were going to have its own little area for it, rather than down at your feet down at the floor. So for that reason, I would say no. And Planet Kraus with $5 said, "Here is a you're welcome high five." Right on. Thanks again. Twistle says, "I'm about to replace a cracked screen for a Chromebook. It's nice to listen while I work." Right on. Michael Dane wants to know, what would be a good power supply wattage for an 11th Gen i9? 500 watts. And then add another 350 if you want to put a GPU in there that's a high-end GPU, or 250 of a mid-range or lower GPU. You'll see I use those EVGA 500 watt power supplies almost universally across every build, unless it's an X99, X299, or Threadripper, or a machine that's got a high-end graphics card. Those graphics cards, a 30 series graphics card, you're going to need about 350 watts for that. In addition, it's going to be pulling about 75 watts from the board, so a total of 425. Speed Test Queen Eva says, "Thanks for all you do, Mr. Kerry Hulsman. I've learned so much from your channel." Right on. Thank you. Shane says, "I think they are trying to push USB-C expansion cards." They make USB-C expansion cards, and anything they make, they're going to want to push. I mean, that if you go to McDonald's, they're pushing Big Macs. You know what I mean? So it's not their fault. The board I selected, which was of my own free will and choosing, did not have the USB 3.2 header on it for the case. They couldn't have predicted that. They're just trying to help. They're just saying, "Hey, Kerry, we saw your video. We want you to know we make a card for that, and we'll gladly send you one." I don't know why you would demonize or say anything that was in any way negative about such a generous offer, and the fact that they make it. And it's good because it lets other people know it's available should it meet their needs. Your personal needs, I don't make the videos for you personally. I don't know you. But I think it's very kind of them to do that. And Gigabyte makes boards with the USB 3.2 headers on them. It's just not on their budget line. It adds to the cost of the board, and then they have to pass that cost on. Obviously, they're not a charity, and suddenly their budget board isn't so budget, and then you guys will be out there complaining about how much money it is because they've added this and they've added that. So they strip them down in order to get the price down. And for most businesses and most end users, they don't need those Z series boards. I see people buying them and they don't even utilize any of the functions on them at all. So I'm just scratching my head wondering why they spent the extra $50. But again, I was raised in my family, we had no heat and we had no air conditioning for a few years. So for me, $50 is a lot of money, and I wouldn't just squander it. Okay, Cordius Technology said, "I heard the 40 series graphics cards will need a 1500 watt power supply. I hope not, LOL." Yeah, how many watts do you think you can pull through the outlet in your house? And how many outlets are on the same circuit? In general, about 15 amps is what's average in an American household. So 15 amps times 120 volts is that 1800 watts? So if you've got a laser printer plugged in, you've got a monitor plugged in, if you've got lamps plugged in, you're going to start blowing circuits in your house. Some homes will have a 20 amp circuit, but it's not very common in America. Patrick Rusaw says, have you heard anything from Colin Hilton? Where'd his message go? It's been a while. I haven't seen him in the chat. I hope he's doing well. I did recently hear from Colin Hilton, because I checked in with him too. I was checking to see how he was doing. I think I still have his message on Facebook. Where is he? Maybe not. Anyway, he was, well, maybe I do. No, I don't. No, that's an old message. That's from months ago. It must be in my email, now that I think about it. So yes, he had emailed me and said that he was fighting some illness of some kind, and that he was hoping to be back to his old self here soon. As I recall, I have so many conversations with so many people, it's hard to remember who says what. I just want to check one more place here. Looks like I heard from him on February 17th. He said, oh, here it is. He says, I've been bad with my COPD for over 12 months, but I'm nearly over it now. I hope to be back in chat soon. Hope you're doing well. Regards to everyone in chat, Colin. And that was, I believe, February 17th, just a couple weeks ago. Yeah. So thanks for asking about him. He's a great guy. He's there in England. Carlos Martinez says, thank you, Mr. Carey. You inspired me to build my own computer, and I love it. Keep up the good work. Right on, Carlos. Thank you, my friend. Is Carlos Blue in here? We got to make Carlos blue. Carlos. Where's Carlos? There he is. Now you're blue. Daniel Ramirez with 1999. He says, thanks, Carey. I always appreciate your videos. Well, Daniel, thank you. I appreciate you. Daniel's now blue, too. Going to add to the blue army here. We got over 2,000 people in blue. I'd love to make it 4,000. All you got to do is be kind. You don't have to give any money. Just be a nice person and participate in a friendly way in the chat room. And I'd love to recognize you with blue status as a good guy. Going back to that 1,500 watt power supply requirement, 50 Fox says, if you were using 100% efficiency of your power supply, that's not going to happen. Your power supply isn't going to sustain that for very long. So it's a good point as well. Michael Dane says there's a good price on an EVGA 850 watt bronze for $99.99. Where's that at? Is that from EVGA or from Amazon or Newegg? Michael says if you have a Walmart, they sell those S22 USB to 3.5 millimeter adapters. I really don't like going to Walmart or anywhere. Quite frankly, I'll order it on Amazon. Somebody sent me an Amazon gift card from England, and they sent it to me in British pounds from Amazon.co.uk, and I cannot use it. I would have to create an account at Amazon.co.uk and then order using the gift card there and then have it shipped overseas to me, which would take over 30 days. And I have no way to email them. I have no way to message them. I don't know how to reach out to them and tell them. So if they're watching this, or if you're considering sending an Amazon gift card, it has to be for Amazon.com in American dollars. I've had some folks in India send me Amazon gift cards in the same situation. I have to go to create an account. at Amazon.in, I think it is. And in Amazon France, someone else did that. And I'm like, guys, I can't create all these Amazon accounts and order things overseas. You have to contact Amazon customer service, explain to them you're sending that to someone in the United States, and they can help you with that. If you use the links that I include in my video notes, they should take you to Amazon.com. I'm not quite sure how people in Europe and in England are sending me the gift cards. I know Peter Laycock's got it figured out. I'm sure he can tell me how it's done. It's frustrating because, you know, I appreciate the thought, but it's something I can't use. Dom Parada with $4.99 says, I like how this community checks in, asks about each other. Thank you, Patrick Rousseau. Very nice to see this. That's what we're all about here, right? It's not about me, and it's not necessarily about computers and tech. It's about people. And it's about having a supportive community. You know, the world's a tough place. Can be. And it's a very competitive place. So to have a place where we don't have to be competitive unless it's just in jest, it's just in fun, it can kind of relax a little bit and know you're not going to be attacked here. Unless you say something nasty, in which case, you know, you get what you give. Tim Francis says, Mr. Holzman, you've helped me so much. I don't miss any of your shows. I don't miss many of your shows. I thank you and I appreciate you. Thank you, Tim. Buck D1 says, must have built 30 PCs for friends and family in the last 8 years. In the last 8 years, since finding Carrie, it's become a hobby of mine. Hey, nothing wrong with a hobby. Love it. And it's great that you can help others. That's ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what it's about, right? Even if the other is you, help yourself. I'm a big fan of people who want to be self-reliant and they just need a little push in the right direction, for sure. And if you can then take that and help others in your community and in your family and your friends, all the better. Spread the love. There's too much hatred. There's too much spitting of venom. There's too much nastiness. Once again, when I see a lot of people behaving a certain way or going to a certain place or buying a certain thing, I tend to go the opposite way. I see that as a red flag. It looks like a group of sheep all following one another and not thinking on their own, and it scares me. So if the world were a supportive place, I wouldn't feel the motivation to do this, right? I would just do my job. I wouldn't need to film it, and I wouldn't need to encourage people to be kind to one another. But such is life, and such as the way, the times that we live in, that I feel a community like this online with people from all different backgrounds, ages, genders, religions, can all come together and respect one another. And at the very least, even if you don't respect one another, you can be kind. And if you can't be kind, you can say nothing. All of that's okay with me. My preference is that you do say something and that it's not provocative. You just say, hi, how are you? And you'll end up making friends in here you may never meet in real life. People that you may live in other countries, and who knows, could be your neighbor too for all you know. But the only place you'll meet is here in the chat room. And I think that's incredible. Human connection is critical to the quality of our lives. I firmly believe that. And if we have something of common interest, like computers, that draws us together, it's a good conversation starter for a future friendship. Bob Connors, hey, there's Bob, contributes $10. He says, hi, again, no video notification. Here's my late fee. Hi, Bob. Yeah, I'm sorry I started late tonight. I really want to get this done so I can drop it off tomorrow. I am seriously looking like a hoarder over here. I've got so many computers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's in this little tiny room. I have to kind of maneuver around them. And then the other room, There's another 20 or 30 in there. So I really need to start getting more computers out the door than I'm bringing in. I have to seriously, like, get my butt in gear. So I think it's going to be another late night tonight. I have to get this done. Have to. Dave Hall says, Carrie, on a clean install of Windows 10 Home, it has eliminated the computer power settings. I don't have the option to turn my desktop computer off. 2 different desktops so far. Any ideas? I don't use Windows 10 Home. I don't know, but if anybody in the chat knows, please help Dave out. Tom Organtini contributes $10. Tom, thank you so much for your support. Make sure you're blue in here, my friend. Frank Jimmy says, computers out and money in. Well, that's true too, right? Watching You Daily says, Carrie, that's not called hoarding. It's called selective collecting. Well, none of this is mine. This all belongs to customers. Or, well, some of it's mine, but I don't want it. I want it to go to a customer or a viewer. But it's not done yet. It's got to be done. And it's hard. It's really hard to finish one thing only to have something else roll in, and I've got to push that thing aside and move in on the next one. Maybe it's time for, well, it's long past time to get Photo Ray back over here. I could really use his skilled hand at helping me button up these machines. I really would love to be that surgeon where the patient's already prepped under anesthesia. I come in, I make the cut, I do the surgery, and then I say, nurse, tie him up. And, everything from there is carried on by other people. I clock out. So I'd love to be able to build the machine, and then when it comes to the cable management, pass it off and say, here, button this up for me. Or take it to FedEx and pack it and ship it for me. But for now, I have to do everything on my own, including the picking up and the dropping off of the machines. And what's really been very clear to me is that that's what people want. People don't want somebody else working on their machine. They don't want somebody else picking up or dropping off their machine. They want me. And I don't mean that in an egotistical way. I mean that as much as I would like to pass that off to somebody else, the customers have made it clear that the person they're hiring is me, not the other person. So most of them are saying, okay, if you're supervising that person and they're doing it exactly the same way you would, it's okay, but I'd still prefer to see your smiling face show up at my door and drop it off and hook it up and talk to me rather than this other person, because I have a connection to you. I don't have a connection to them. They might be a great person. I don't know them. And then that ends up, unfortunately, sort of backfiring in the way that I don't know, people just, they don't, they're more reluctant to call for future work if they don't think it's me that's going to do it. I kind of get it. So I just have to get used to it, I guess. I don't know what else to do. Watching You Daily wants to know if I would recommend a thin client for a home office PC. As far as I know, they don't make thin clients anymore. About the closest you can get to a thin client would be a Chromebook, and that's not a decision I can make. I would consult with a customer to understand their budget and their needs to ensure that they wouldn't be disappointed with a Chromebook or something along those lines. Thin clients are traditionally workstations that are used in an enterprise environment that load from the server. And that was in the 90s, and it didn't pan out very well. It put too much of a load on the server, and everything was slow. But yeah, they told us that thin clients were going to take our jobs. And I don't know. We've been told so many things was going to take our job by our bosses in the IT world. None of it's ever really happened. So except outsourcing, that happened. They certainly threatened that enough. But yeah, I'm not aware of any other existence of thin clients beyond a Chromebook in these modern times. And I've met people that love their Chromebook, and I've met people that can't stand them. So it's not really an answer that fits without a consult. Dave Hall says he's got a problem with power sleep mode, no option anymore. I don't recommend a desktop computer ever be put into sleep or hibernation. That was always intended to save batteries on a laptop or a portable machine that has batteries. So if you're not running batteries, there's absolutely no benefit to putting your computer to sleep or hibernation. And I would say 20% of all support calls used to be sleep or hibernation related because they had video drivers that would break it. And I'm like, what are you people doing? Leave the computer on and set it to, slowest processor state at 5%, maximum processor state at 100%, and have it shut off your monitor after a set amount of time. Leave the computer on 24/7. The clients that I maintain are instructed to leave their computers on 24/7. We very rarely ever have any problems. They do have to restart the computers. I recommend every Monday just restart it to clear out the memory. And we don't have those problems. Most of the problems you're going to have are going to happen at startup. That's why I get really busy on Mondays. Monday morning, if it's a slow morning, I'm going to have a good week. Leave those computers on if you want them to last the longest. I can tell you after 30 years of experience, my office computer at Studio A, apart from upgrades, has never been turned off in over 10 years. I've never had to fix a problem on it. Never, not one. My clients that have multiple computers, there's no problems. Everything just works. If you want problems, keep turning it off and on. How often do you turn your smartphone off? Do you ever turn your refrigerator off? There's a lot of items most people don't turn their thermostat completely off, like it's still got power to it, even if you're not, having it run the AC, it's still got power. Your modern television set doesn't turn all the way off. It goes into a low power standby, which is not a sleep mode, by the way. It's sucking electricity up when it's off. So I would advise, if you want electronics to stay on, to last longer, leave them on. The most amount of damage you can do to a car is starting it. But that's for a different reason. That's because you don't have any oil pressure when you start the car. Unless it's an electric car. But we're not talking about electric cars. Ryu says, I tend to turn my computer off when I go to bed. There are people that have RGB and a lot of fans, and they can't sleep with the RGB on and the noise of the fans. It's all the more reason not to have the RGB and all those fans. You don't need it. The RGB can often be turned off through software, or if it's manually controlled, you hold the button in and the lights will go out. As for the fans, I would recommend you disconnect any fans that aren't necessary. You need one in the front and one in the back, or one on the top. But you don't need it on the back and the top. You certainly don't need any on the bottom, and you don't need more than one in the front. So anything you have more than that, you can disconnect them. It won't make any difference in your temps, and your electric usage will go down and your noise levels will go down. Hey, there's Marty in the chat room, contributes $20. Thank you, Marty. Chad's Music Creations has sent me a link. I can't play it right now, but I'll check it out later, Chad. Thank you. I realize there are some people that live in other countries where electricity is expensive. I'm obviously referring to Americans, because that's my only perspective. John Downey said Dell had thin client systems you can purchase. When? I haven't seen a thin client. 20 years. Richard Collins says hello. Hey, Richard, welcome in. John Gardner says, I turn off my PC when I go to bed because my cat keeps playing with the keyboard and it wakes me up. If it's a USB keyboard, you could just unplug the keyboard and put it away where the cat can't get it. The Greek contributes $10. Said, just enjoy these live shows. Thanks. Well, thank you, the Greek. Are you blue? You are now. Inical Morale says, the Corsair case is so good, I wish they made a smaller version. The 100R is a smaller version. The 110Q is a little smaller. Not by much, it's a little narrower. Fernando says, HP commercial grade PC division still sells thin clients. News to me. Although I would expect if they were going to be made, it would be for commercial purposes, not for home users. The thin clients imply that you're going to be connecting to a server somewhere where all the data is and everything you need to connect to is not on the thin client. It's into something you're connecting to, hence like a Chromebook. But surprised that they're selling thin clients. I can't imagine they sell many of them, but I don't know. Stephen Embry says we use thin clients in the military. Why doesn't that surprise me? Not surprise me. The military is using technology that's 20 years old. What a shock. I don't know. I don't know how they're used. As a computer shop, as a repair technician, there's not really a whole lot to repair with a thin client. There's really not much to them. They're mostly disposable. You just swap them out with a new one and send the other one back to the manufacturer. So there, as a business model, it doesn't pay to get into any sort of work for them. And also, when I was working in corporate America, as I mentioned, we messed around with some thin clients. It wasn't pretty. It did not work out well. And they never looked back again. That was it. And that was over 20 years ago. And that's my personal experience. Chad's Music Creation says, I once took a Wise workstation and upgraded it a tad and was able to run Linux on it, and it ran well for web browsing, but that was about it. Yeah, so what were they? Wise, W-I-S-E, Digital Equipment Corporation, DEC. Trying to remember who else was a big thin client innovator back in the day. So one that's eluding me right now. I can't remember. I feel like there's a fourth one, at least a fourth one, that I should know, and it's not coming to me. John Downey says, look at the Dell website. Many companies use thin clients. I've been out of the loop, you know. If they're using thin clients, I'd like to know what they're doing differently. As far as I can tell, you're always going to have the same problem, which is you have to severely bombard the network with traffic, since the thin client has to have all the information provided to it. And so whatever you're saving on the thin client, you're more than spending on the network infrastructure to support it. If you're a large corporation and you've deployed hundreds of these things in your office building, it is a data traffic nightmare. So unless they've changed the definition of what a thin client is, it's definitely not my wheelhouse. Rupen contributes 10 Canadian dollars. He says, I have two questions. Where do I send you something to test and then donate with a build? And what's the difference between a mini motherboard and a regular motherboard other than the obvious? Well, there's no such thing really as a mini motherboard. There's mini ITX, and that's a industry standard form factor. Micro ATX is another form factor, industry standard, as well as ATX and extended ATX. Now, and there's a few others that we get into servers and stuff. This motherboard in here, I might have said it's a mini board in the sense that it visually looks small. And so it's going to have limited expansion. If we had a full-size ATX board in here, we'd be able to add cards through all these slots. But as you can see with this board, we only have one AGP slot, and then we have 3 PCI slots, still leaving half of the bays empty. We can never use those. So you have limited expansion abilities. It costs less. There's less parts required in the manufacturer, less cost in distribution. It's not as heavy. It's not as big. It doesn't. You can put a lot more of these on a truck, right? So you can sell a lot more in one truckload. So the price is lower. The expansion is more limited, and there's pros and cons. It's mostly a price thing. You could put it into a smaller case, but it still has expansion. It's just not as expandable. And the same is true with mini ITX. The same is true with micro ATX. The bigger the board, the more you can put on it. You know, you'll see it only has 2 RAM slots there, not 4. There's no room for 4. Same with the mini ITX board. So it's a give and take of features, depending on what your needs are as an individual or as a corporation, to determine what suits your needs and, of course, your budget. Where do I send you something to test? I'll tell you what, I am buried in work. I really don't want anybody to send me anything for now. But you'd have to contact me in a private email because I don't make that information public. And my email address is my name, Kerry@kerryholzman.com. It's very simple. And just make sure you spell it correctly. You'll be fine. If you don't get a response in a day or two, it probably means I didn't get it. Watching You Daily says, Kerry, the thin clients have turned more into small micro PCs like the Nook now. I only asked because my wife's friend has one and she wanted to get one. Oh, your wife wants to get one because her friend has one. Okay. Lenovo, Dell, HP all make thin clients. I don't know. I don't see a Nook as a thin client. The Nook is a full-powered workstation. In fact, the Nook we just built, I was going to live stream from it to show you how powerful it is. If it was a true thin client, it wouldn't have enough power to live stream from it. Try live streaming off a Chromebook. I suppose it can be done, but it's not going to be pretty. Sun Microsystems, Fernando. Yes, Sun. Thank you, Fernando. We did have a lot of Sun workstations, or were they servers, back at Intel. Was it Intel? And they were named, each server was named after a player on the Phoenix Suns. So, you know, we had Ainge and Barkley and who else did we have on the team back then? Marley. I thought it was clever that they named all the Sun workstations after players of the Phoenix Suns in the 1990s when the Phoenix Suns, you know, basketball team was doing really, really good. You know, back in the days when the Chicago Bulls had guys like Michael Jordan and Dennis Rodman and, come on, Kerry, what's the other guy's name? Scottie Pippen. Yeah. Those were the good days of basketball. Long, long ago. Michael Jordan is superhuman. What an athlete. What an amazing athlete. The latest Nook uses a desktop CPU now. There is a Nook that does, but not the latest Nook. There's a lot of latest Nooks that use different CPUs. Watching You Daily says, I'll find your Nook build to show my wife. Thanks. Yeah, I just did it. Was it 3 or 4 weeks ago? And they're super easy to build. They take 10 minutes. All you do is put RAM and a solid state drive in it. And then load Windows. You're good to go. Oh, Steve Nash. Yeah, there's another one. Thank you. Yeah, forgot about Steve Nash. Thomas says Michael Jordan played baseball as well. He did. Not quite as good, to say the least, but he did. Carrie, have you had much time with the Microsoft Surface? I have enough time with it to know I would never want one and I would never recommend one. They are disposable. So once you're out of warranty, you're done. They are glued shut. So nobody that I know in the area will even touch them. Microsoft won't even take them for repair. Unless it's in warranty. So if you buy a Surface notebook, then absolutely buy the extended warranty. Normally I'd say stay away from extended warranties, but in something like that, if you want to keep it a while, at least you'll know you're good for the time of the warranty. Once the warranty runs out, if there's a problem, you're done. And the issue is it's not priced like a disposable computer. It's priced like a high-end computer. But it is absolutely disposable once your warranty is done. So as long as you go into it knowing that and you're okay with it, have at it. Because Eisen said, I worked on Sync's Sun on Sun initiative in the 1990s, where they moved to Linux and removed all Microsoft products. Had to leave our laptops at check-in even. Business politics. Jason Wheeler says, thank you, Carrie and Chad, for doing these videos. You've really helped me with my computer and life. Right on, Jason. Well, thanks for joining us and being a part of this community. Everybody matters, and the more kind and helpful they are, the more they matter in this community. The more valuable they are to this community is what I'm trying to say. Chad's Music Creation says you have to have a heat gun to remove the screen on those surfaces. I've seen some YouTube videos on that, and they're not always successful. Daniel Ramirez wants to know if I do any marketing or advertising to get business, or do you only rely on word of mouth referrals and repeat clients? I've talked about this a bit in the past. I haven't talked about it in a long time. When starting out, I did a lot of advertising, Chamber of Commerce stuff, and the groups where you help each other out. But I never really got any return on investment. It was just throwing money away. I sent out mailers I would print out and stuff envelopes by hand and put stamps on them and take them to the post office and sent out like 100 in one go, and that cost like $300 or some ridiculous thing for postage, and not a single phone call. I had a Yellow Pages ad back when, remember the Yellow Pages? They would charge me every month, and I was getting people trying to sell me stuff. They'd try, hey, do you do your own taxes? Do you buy used parts? Or they were looking for free technical support. And so I wanted to cancel the Yellow Pages ad, and they said, well, you can't cancel it. It's not like we're going to recall the book. So I said, well, I'm not paying the bill. I'm done. So that was a nasty ending. And yeah, I couldn't figure out a good way to sell myself. I was never a good salesman. It's like, if you need help, I can help you. But that's about the extent of my salesmanship. And what I started to do is whenever I'd have a customer, I had a customer, a couple of times I've had customers that I had reached out to see how things were going, and they're like, oh, we're so glad you called. I've been wanting to call you and I lost your number. So what I started to do whenever I would service a client is leave them like 3 or 4 business cards. And I'd go, here's a little, here, have 3 of my business cards. Put one on the refrigerator, put one in a desk drawer. If you know anybody who needs help, I appreciate referrals. And that way I'm not selling. That was very comfortable for me, that I didn't feel like I was pressuring somebody in a corner. I wasn't asking them to do anything for me, right? I said, look, if I give you 3, you can lose 2. And you still have my number. I don't mind running out of business cards. I love running out of business cards. If I have to order more business cards, that's a good day. That means I gave out 500 business cards because I'm ordering, 500 or 1,000 at a time. So if I'm out, because I'm not counting them when I give them, I'm not going, okay, there's number 117. I don't know. I just ran out. Holy cow, I guess I gave out 500 cards. That's fantastic. I'm going to order some more cards. I would give computer presentations to local computer clubs before the pandemic. I did that for many, many years. And I did it for free. And I said, look, I'm not here to sell you anything. I'll answer your questions just as we're doing here, but I do it with a live audience. There's usually 40 to 120 people on average, and generally senior citizens at the community centers and senior places here in Arizona. And I just answer the questions that are on their mind to the best of my ability. And then when I'm done, say, listen, thank you for joining me for my presentation today. I am a computer repair business owner, and if you ever need any computers repaired, I have my business cards up front at the stage if you'd like to pick one up, or 2 or 3, take as many as you like. And I even had many of their local computer clubs that are there in the community, when they get problems that are above their head, they'd say, hey, can we take a stack of these to have at the computer club and we can hand them to people who don't go to the meetings? Take as many as you want. So I found that when I was trying to force it, it wasn't working well. But when you learn how to go with the flow and just tell your customer what's up, right? Just be honest. I don't do any advertising. It hasn't worked for me. All my business comes from referrals. So if you know anybody that needs any help with their computer, here's an extra business card or 2 and you can give it to them. I'd appreciate it. I don't offer to pay them any money. I don't say I'm going to give you a discount or I'm going to give you $10. I don't do that. I genuinely, if you have a friend that wants help, please, I'd appreciate if you give them my card, and hopefully your friend will appreciate it too. I win, you win, they win, it's all good. For a while, I had people calling on behalf of their friends who wouldn't call. That started to get on my nerves. They'd say, hey, I just wanted you, did you hear from John? I gave your name and your number to my friend John. He's been having computer problems. He keeps complaining about it. He can't seem to find anybody to fix it. Has anybody named John called you? No. Okay, well, I'm just calling to tell you that I told my friend John about you, so if John calls, he's a referral for me. Okay. And then they might call me again a week later. Hey, it's me again. Did John ever call you? No. I can't believe it. He just complains about his computer and he can't get anybody to fix it, and they can't fix it. And then I gave him your name and number and he hasn't called you? No, he has not called me. So they're wasting my time. They're taking me away from work to follow up on somebody else's problem. There's nothing in it for them. I'm not giving them a commission. And that happened a lot for a couple of years. I was getting it a lot. Not from one person. Like, just people were doing that. It was like a thing. And I was like, look, if your friend wants to call, your friend will call, right? I mean, there's nothing I can do about it, nothing you can do about it. But there are people that will sit there and complain about their problem. When you give them a solution, they won't bother. That's just the way some people are. That's what I learned through this anyway. So eventually I figured out the best way to get business was from businesses and not from consumers. My first couple of years, I had over 450 different clients, and I was barely making ends meet. And those clients would only call me once a year maybe, so I needed a lot of them. But one business can give me the same amount of business as, 200 or 300 of those clients. And the businesses paid better, they had more work. I wasn't driving all over town. Generally, the business is in one place. You go to that one place over and over and over again, and they have a lot of needs that need to be answered or resolved. And so there was a lot more work from one business client than I could get from dozens or hundreds of consumers. And so I started dropping the consumer work because it was too piecemeal. It didn't pay very well. And they're located all over the place. The Phoenix metropolitan area is large. It can take an hour to get from one side of the Phoenix metropolitan area to the other. And when you tell a consumer, I'm going to charge you $125, And they're like, why so much? I'm like, well, I got an hour in the car to get to you, and I got an hour in the car to get home. You know, you're calling for at-home service. It's like, you know, calling for a butler. So just me showing up to your door and then coming back to my house is 2 hours of my day gone. And in 2 hours, I'd make $250, but I'm only charging you $125. So if the client was too cheap to pay it, didn't hurt my feelings, you'd call somebody else, go right ahead. It's not a big loss for me. I'm a terrible salesman. I just want to help people. If they don't want the help, other people do. So I'm okay with it either way. I'm not going to twist their arm or try to change their mind. I had a lady that called me, and I was over at her place, and she was way across town. It was one of those, you know, if it wasn't an hour, it was close to an hour, and that's assuming no traffic, road closures, or accidents. And she had called me and said the Wi-Fi stopped working on her laptop, and I said, well, there's probably a Wi-Fi switch on your laptop, and you've inadvertently pressed it. She said, where is it? I said, I don't know. It's not like in one universal place. Depends on the make and model of the laptop. Could be a physical switch on the side or front of the laptop, or it could be a function key along with, you know, pressing the function button. I don't know. And, you know, there wasn't any way for me to see it back then. She goes, I don't think so. I don't think, I've never seen any sort of a Wi-Fi button that turns it on or off, and I've had the laptop for years. It's on there. If it has Wi-Fi, it could be turned. It has to be turned off. Like if you were going to get on an airplane, what would you do? She goes, okay, let me look at it and I'll call you back. So she calls me back. She goes, yeah, I don't have any. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have such a button. I go, you do. I said, here's the thing. I want to help you. But if I have to get in the car and drive for an hour just to push a button on your laptop, I have to charge you the $125. I'm trying to save you money. I'm a terrible salesman. This is something you should do yourself. It'd save $125. She goes, I've heard you, and I appreciate you looking out for me. And I'm telling you, I don't have such a button. I would gladly pay you $125 to prove me wrong. I drove over there. I showed her the button. Internet came back on. And then I decided, you know, not to be a jerk, I decided to go ahead and update her Malwarebytes. It was out of date, and took care of that for her while I was there. And I ended up, you know, there for about 45 minutes. And true to her word, she wrote me the check. She thanked me very much. And I have never, ever heard from her again. And I'm okay with it. It's clear across town. I don't want to drive all the way over there yet. I have to assume she just didn't need me anymore. I don't think she was mad. Planet Cryos with a $10 contribution said, got some more info on the 12900KS. The boost will run at 5.5 single core and 5.2 across all cores at boost, so only 200 megahertz better than a 9900KS. It's always that little bit extra you pay the most for that you get the least amount of return for your investment, right? If you get a car that can do a quarter mile in 13 seconds, it's not a big deal. If you get a car that can do the quarter mile in 11 seconds, you're going to pay $20,000 to $30,000 more on average. And for every quarter second you want to shave off, you can add another $10,000 to $20,000 from that point forward. So you're reaching a point of diminishing returns. So that makes sense to me. I can see why Intel would do that. There are people that just have to have the best. If it's 1 megahertz faster and it costs $1,000, well, if it costs $100 more and you get just 1 megahertz, they want it. And there's enough of those people that they make a limited run of those chips. They won't make a lot of them because they wouldn't sell a lot of them. So they make a limited edition to sort of increase the odds that someone might want to collect it, keep it in the box. I'm sure if you look for a 9900KS or better yet an 8086K, these are all limited runs. And if you look on eBay, I bet you there's some for sale that have never been taken out of the box. These are people that bought them as investments to resell for a profit later. And there'll be more of that. I don't see any interest in that 12900KS personally. Although I do have an 8086K, and this machine here is a 9900KS right here. But the 12900 KS, yeah. Peter Laycock, there he is, contributes 50 pounds. He says, good morning, Kerry, and everyone in the chat from Bonnie, Scotland, where the temperature in Edinburgh is 27 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 3 degrees Celsius. Whew, it sounds chilly. I wish I was there. We had over 80 degrees Fahrenheit today. It's already getting hot. Aaron Computer Tech says, Kerry, I've got an RMA question. When you're building a PC for a client, do you fill out your info or your client's info for the warranty of the parts just in case you have to return it? Aaron, I don't ever fill out any registration forms, ever. Not even for my own parts. No registration forms are filled out on any computer or any laptop, ever. Warranty is covered by law. It's not covered if all those registration forms are doing is putting you on a mailing list as a buyer, right? They know you've bought from them before, so you will likely buy from them again. It's not like a cold call where they don't know who you are. So when you voluntarily surrender your contact info, they're going to use it. Now, some companies will extend the warranty if you do that. However, I very rarely have any warranty issues that aren't right immediately out of the gate, or I can still send it back to Amazon or Newegg and not even deal with the vendor. But warranties in America are covered by law, and there's no requirement to fill out any registration form. If it was a requirement, then that would be the responsibility of the customer, not mine. Keith wants to know what I think of the framework laptops, interchangeable and upgradable. There's nothing new about them. They've attempted this in the 90s and it failed. They attempted this with the phones, smartphones, and it failed. And they're doing it again and it'll probably fail again. The only way something like that can work is if a bunch of other manufacturers get on board to offer alternative part selections and pricing, which also creates competition and lowers those prices and also adds to the availability of options and choices. One company can't do that on their own. It's sort of like the old VHS versus Beta. Beta was superior in many ways, but Sony owned it and required royalty license fees for anybody to make a Beta deck. VHS, on the other hand, was a much cheaper royalty. I don't know, it was almost royalty-free by comparison. Now, if you're in the manufacturing business and you want to make a video recorder, do you want to pay Sony all this licensing rights, or do you want to go with the video home system, the VHS system, which, as far as I know, was a fraction. It was almost nothing, the licensing cost. So, of course, that means more profit for you, less for Sony if you pick VHS. So many manufacturers made VHS recorders, and then they started competing with one another, and this brought the prices down. So VHS won, not because it was superior of the technology or picture quality, but because it was more affordable. The same can be said for Thunderbolt. The same can be said for anything Apple does. When you tie it down and you lock it down to licensing fees, you're just not going to gain the popularity as something that's free or inexpensive. That's the way it's always been. Nothing new about the framework laptops. This has all been done before and it's all failed before. It feels like deja vu to me, but I appreciate the effort. And if they can get other manufacturers on board to create alternative options for purchase that are compatible, they might have something that works. But you gotta come to the table with it. You can't just show up with a Kindle ebook reader and have 5 books to pick from. You know, Bezos said, the day I release the Kindle, I gotta have 100,000 books available, which is the average number of books a Barnes & Noble superstore had in inventory. And he wanted people to have the entire inventory of a Barnes & Noble superstore on day 1 of owning a Kindle. You don't buy the Kindle and then hope the books will come out. So that's why the framework laptop will just be a repeat of everything that's happened before it. Unless that happens. Marty UL contributes $5. He says, good to see you, Carrie and chat. Hi, Marty. Thanks again. Sari Euroblue contributes $10 and said, I am still using the PC you built for me in 2016. My real name is Jen, and I play Final Fantasy XIV. I just got an RTX 3080, and I'm planning a build. Do you have a favorite mid or full case to build in these days? I've always liked the 200R. Good luck getting one. The Be Quiet line of cases, NZXT's line of cases. This is a Fantex case, although it's a little tight. Of those, I like NZXT a little bit more than Be Quiet's cases, but they're both good. Like a 700 series NZXT or the Pure Base 600 series from Be Quiet. Those are real easy to work in, big, roomy, good airflow, lots of room for liquid cooler radiators and such. I don't know, folks in the chat might have some suggestions. I know there's a lot of fans of Fractal. I don't care for Fractal myself. I'm sure there's a few other big manufacturers. Corsair's got other cases to pick from as well. The 4000D is pretty nice. I wouldn't hesitate to use a 4000D. Carrie, do you invest in stocks? I do not. Todd joins us in the chat. Hey, Todd. Planet Cryos is recommending the Corsair 4000D or 5000D. I'm on board with that. Godsman 500 says, are we one-man shops going the way of the dinosaur? Seems the bigger shops are aggressively taking over. Certain people in society see more trust in a mom and pop shop, and others see more trust in a big corporation. The big corporation has advertising dollars and will always charge them more and generally hire help that accepts the wage they're paying, not necessarily help that meets certain requirements of experience or education. I don't think anything's any different now than it's ever been in my entire lifetime. If anything, I think the reverse is happening. There's a great what do you call it? Everybody's quitting their job. Like the great resignation is taking place, and everybody's working from home now. More so now than ever in my life. So I think it's going the opposite way. But they'll always be around. As long as somebody wants to work, you can't stop them. And as long as a corporation has the bankroll to enter into a market, you can't stop them. So they'll both coexist, and I'm sure throughout my entire lifetime that'll never change. And people will pick one or the other. The problem with the big corporations is you can't really establish a relationship with anybody, because people come and go. And other people, well, I'll tell you, I've had clients say, you're my guy, right? You fixed this for me, you did it quick, you did it, on time, under budget. I'm telling you right now, I'm not ever going to anybody else. You are my guy, and I want you to know that. Now, to me, that just kind of goes in one ear and out the other, because I'm like, prove it. We'll see if you call me again, but I'm always here. So if you call me again, I'd love to help you again. But talk, show me. Yeah, I don't think anything is going to change in our lifetime. Domin says, VHS main advantage was recording time. I don't agree with that. Not everybody wanted to record in a 6-hour mode. The video quality was terrible. It really depends on who you talk to. I don't think the reason had anything to do with recording time. I think that's a popular misconception from people who were reading the history but didn't necessarily live it. I can tell you, having lived it, it was the price. It was absolutely the price. The minute VHS decks got down below $300 in the early 1980s, was when suddenly everybody started buying them. And if beta had been at that price point, we would have been buying it. I guarantee it. It was the barrier to entry was the price. You know, this goes back in history too. You know, you could have bought a gas, electric, or steam car in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And the gas car was smelly and noisy, and it was cheap. I don't have to tell you which one won. Steam and electric were very expensive, but they had other advantages. But the main problem was price. When Henry Ford introduced the Model T, it was all about price. It was making a car affordable so that every American could afford to have a car. And it always comes down to price. And while recording time was an advantage on VHS, it wasn't a universal advantage everybody agrees on. For the most part, everybody agrees on price. Sorry, he said we had a beta and the tapes were more expensive. Yeah, because they were licensed from Sony. And even the rent, they were more expensive. They were more expensive because there were fewer to pick from, supply and demand, right? So if you wanted to rent a movie on beta, they didn't have as many copies. So of the few copies they had, they charged more for them. It's a supply and demand issue. It's always about the money, always, first and foremost. Were the first cars steam? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe. But there was a point in time where you could choose. It was either the late 1800s or early 1900s where you had your choice of steam, electric, or gas. And gas was the worst one. It was the noisiest and smelliest, but it was also the cheapest. Just thinking of REO Speedwagon. Steam-powered Raymond E. Olds fire trucks and such. I'm not old enough to remember those days. Bob Connor says, speaking of 4000Ds, have you used the one I sent you in any of your builds? Did I use it? No, I don't. No, I think it's still new in a box. I haven't taken it out yet. I did use a 4000D, but it was a white one. I don't think you didn't send me a white one, did you? I used a white one, and that was, in fact, I've got it sitting over here. That was an AMD Ryzen system I built. I can't remember what I put in there. I built it on camera, and then I set it aside for cable management, and I haven't had time to get back to it because all this other stuff keeps popping up on my desk. And it's like, it needs to move. And because that one over there, the white one, doesn't have a buyer. One gentleman said he wanted to buy it if it was available when he gets his tax refund. I said, fine, and I'll sell it to you if it's available when you get your tax refund. I don't care, it's fine. I'm happy to sell it if it's available. But yeah, I don't think that was the one you sent. I think the one you sent was dark. Carrie, do people still use Windows 8? I'm sure they do. I'm sure if you Google that, they'll see there's a percentage of how many people are still using Windows 8. Bob says the case he sent me was black, but I watched the video of the white build. Okay, so that white build is still here. It's right over there. I'm looking right at it. So the one you sent is, haven't even cut the tape on the box. But those are good cases, and I'm sure it'll get used. It's just a matter of time for me to, I gotta get to it. It's gonna be like a recurring theme here for the next few months. Computer Len wants to know, is Windows 11 necessary? Well, you tell me, Computer Len. It's not my decision to make. Each individual will decide for themselves, although I'm not aware of anything Windows 11 does that Windows 10 doesn't already do. But I don't make decisions for other people unless they're paying me. We call that consulting. William Dawson said there were steam cars. The electric car was made for women at first. I know it sounds sexist, but true. Remember the time in history when it came out. Huh. David wants to know what the pros and cons of Windows 10 Pro over Windows 10 Home. For the most part, there really are no comparison, in the sense that if you're running Windows 10 Home, you would have really no benefit to go to Pro. Be a waste of money and time. And if you're in an office where you have to log into a server, you can't do that with Windows 10 Home. You've got to have Pro. Which leads to, why do you always sell Windows 10 Pro on your builds? Because it's a $2 price difference. And I'd rather sell something that's over the customer's needs, equal to or better than what they need, than to save $2 and then find out they need Pro because they have to log into a server or they need BitLocker or something like that. Most home users, 99%, I would guess, at least in my business and who I encounter in real life, 99% of home users wouldn't know the difference if I gave them Home or Pro. They'd never know. So Pros, really you got to log into a server or you need BitLocker. Otherwise it's just a waste of time and money to upgrade from Home to Pro. And I've said it many times before, I don't advise it. You can if you want to. I just can't imagine. You would have to be an exemption. You'd have to be in that 1%. And if you were in that 1%, you wouldn't be asking me the question. So that's kind of the full circle on that one. What do I think of Windows 11 being optimized for 12th gen CPUs? I think it's great. What's wrong with that? Costanza the Mage says Doug Betts needs to upgrade to Windows 10 Pro to use that 256 gigs of RAM. Well, the computer was sold to Doug with Windows 10 Pro. It was Doug's decision to clone an image from a 10-year-old computer that was in MBR to convert it to GPT, and now he's going to have to convert from Home to Pro, all because he didn't want to reinstall his apps. And if you ask me, I think he made a bad decision. If you asked me, I would have said, keep the install the way I gave it to you, because I saw Doug was struggling to get the drivers put back on it correctly. He was thrown in the device manager. He was thrown getting the image to be restored. He was thrown in so many different ways. If he would have just started from scratch and left the install the way I gave it to him, I think he would have been far well ahead of where he is. But what one may fail to consider is Doug may not have wanted to be up and running faster. He may have wanted to have this experience regardless of how much time it was going to take him. In which case, my logical answer doesn't fit what may be emotional reasoning, right? So there is no right or wrong way, but I would not have done what Doug did because I'm busier than Doug, and I don't have time for that. That is a ridiculous amount of time he is spending on it, and the fact that it's been 2 weeks and he's still not done, obviously he's enjoying it. He hasn't called me, he hasn't asked me for any help, and he hasn't complained. So apparently this is what he's wanted. But there are also people who like to get smacked around, and they'll enjoy that. I don't enjoy virtual pain or physical pain. I like to avoid all pain. Some people say, no pain, no gain. I say, no pain, no pain. I'm sure Doug is doing exactly what Doug wants to do, and he knows exactly what he was in for when he started it. So for me, I'm just like, you have at it, Doug. Enjoy yourself, man. But I would have had that thing up and running and been done and moved on to the next thing by just reinstalling the apps. But he absolutely was insistent that he was gonna clone that drive. And you can see from his experience what you can expect if you do that. It's not all flowers and roses. It's not the easy way out. I think he made his life far more complicated in doing that and more time consuming. I could be wrong, but I have a hunch that he could have reinstalled whatever apps he was not wanting to reinstall in less than 20% of the time he's already invested in just trying to make this thing work. But, you know, there are people who find enjoyment where others find discomfort. Greg Guy said, Doug got the device manager error corrected to load optional updates. But see, Greg, all that was already done when he got the machine. It was all ready for him to start using it. I had already had Windows activated, all the drivers and the latest drivers. Everything was tuned and optimized. And he completely undid all that and, you know, used an image from a 10-year-old computer on a rocket ship bleeding edge tech of a computer. I mean, it'd be one thing if he did it, you know, on a regular desktop, a modern desktop. But this is a super high-end computer. And I would be very concerned at what the foundation of this Windows 10 that's been moved and altered in all these different ways from Home to Pro and GPT from MBR. I would be very concerned at the structural integrity of the foundation of that Windows 10 install over time, because I would have to warranty it, and I wouldn't want to keep taking those phone calls. I have other people to help. But again, I'm not Doug, and Doug is, he's very capable, and I'm sure he's fully aware of the choices he made. But I started to watch it, and I just couldn't watch it anymore. It was too painful. I'm just like, oh, why did you do this to yourself, man? He spent a lot of money for that computer, and apparently this is part of what he was looking forward to. And it was something I would have, as I said, I would have done it a completely different way. But if he's happy, I'm happy. Ruben says, Carrie, good night. Have a long day tomorrow as we are testing new ERP systems. See you and Mitch on Friday. Thanks for stopping in. Costanza the Mage says, Doug hinted he is probably going to do a clean install and he just put the cloned copy on another partition. Okay, well then Doug had to get there on his own, right? Nothing is better than experience. And I had to explain to Doug numerous times when he was here with me on camera where I was kind of assisting Doug with things I should not have, because I'm not accustomed to helping another technician. I'm used to helping customers who don't know. And so I kept defaulting back into that habit. I've been doing it for 30 years. And then when I realized I was doing it, I apologized to Doug. I said, I'm sorry, I need to realize you're a tech and I don't need to talk to you the way I talk to customers. But it's so ingrained in my everyday business. There's a comedian that would talk about how he was married to a woman that was a kindergarten teacher. And she was so used to speaking to children every day that she forgot how to speak to adults. And they'd have like a dinner party. And, you know, she'd ask a guest, would you like a drink? And the guest would be like, oh yeah, I'd take a 7 and 7. And she'd like, oh, 7 and 7. And that's what? 14, that's right. Actually, I think it was a female comedian talking about how she was once a kindergarten teacher and that she realized that she started talking to everybody like they were 5 years old. I think I'm guilty of that in the sense that my business model is to help people. Sometimes people apologize. They say, I'm sorry, I don't know more about this. I say, please, don't apologize. This is why I have a career. If everybody knew everything about computers, what would I be doing? No need to apologize for that whatsoever. I appreciate the fact that you're not interested and you don't care about computers and you want to hire somebody like me to take care of it for you. That's how I just bought my car. You know, that kind of logic. But Doug was very patient with me and super guy. And I personally would like to see him do a clean install on it. If he doesn't have to do a clean install on it, by the way. He's got the image. We took an image of it with Macrium when he was here live on camera so that he could always put it back if he changed his mind. But maybe Doug wants that experience. I don't know. But there's no reason for him to reinvent the wheel. When he restores that image, he'll have all the updates, all the drivers, all the optimizations, all the activations. It all gets put back. And then he only has to grab whatever updates came out in the few weeks since then. It would be done in 10 minutes. 10 minutes, he'd have it done. Versus, it's been what, 10 days? But then maybe if he does it, he won't have anything to do. I don't know what's going on in Doug's life. But he seems to be enjoying it. He hasn't complained to me anyway. So I'm going to take that as good news. Could it be for content on his channel? Well, you'd have to ask Doug that. I don't know. I have no idea. If that was a company and they said, we need this computer up and running, I don't think Doug would have done it like that. But I think he's doing it because he can and because he wants to. And that's all the reason Doug needs, honestly. That's all the reason anybody needs. If it's your machine, you do with it however you want. I'm just accustomed to business. Get it in, get it out, get it done fast, get it done cheap, and get it done right the first time and move on to the next one. So I have a very different perspective on this. When I sold the computer to Doug, it was ready to plug and play. Anything that he has done to start over has been a voluntary choice on his part. And that's the same I do for everybody. If I sell a customer a computer, and as soon as they get it, they start taking it apart, it's their computer. I wouldn't do that. William Dawson says, Doug Betts seems to like to learn for himself by doing. As do I. I respect that. I learn best by doing. I don't care what anybody says. People talk a lot. I want to see it. And furthermore, I can watch somebody play a piano, but you put me in front of that piano and it's going to sound very different. So you can tell me how to play the piano, you can explain it to me, and you can demonstrate it to me, but that doesn't necessarily benefit me as much as just sitting down and playing it well. If you ever watch a musician, or if you ever watch, America's Got Talent, these people that come out on stage and whatever they're doing, dancing, telling jokes, juggling, playing an instrument, it is doing what they're doing is the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Just like a baseball, any sports figure, baseball, football, it's you eat, sleep, and breathe whatever that is every day, and you hone your craft and you get better and better and better at it. It's very rare somebody plays a new video game for the first time and gets all the way through without, having to start over or, having the game end on them prematurely. And you keep playing it and playing it. Maybe there's a level you can't seem to get past. You keep trying and trying and trying. And then you can get through it easily after that every time. It's developing a skill, it's a muscle memory, it's an experience that leads to a more productive and a more efficient, optimized output. And such is life. People that are just joining, do know that this live video is in DVR mode. And that means you can rewind the video. You don't have to ask anybody ever what you've missed. You can rewind the video right now, right back to the beginning if you need, to see where we were and what we've done. You can do that right now while this video is live. Stealth Mode said, true talent looks effortless to them. Watch the face of a lead guitarist. They are in a zone and not often even looking while they play. This is true. A lot of people can even repeat what they hear just by hearing it. They know the instrument, a guitar, a piano, so well. They know what it's going to sound like before they press the key. They know which key to hit, and they've got the timing down on it. It's very, very impressive. I think someone asked Yitzhak Perlman, they said, I'd give my life to play violin like you do. And he said, I did. To learn and to get proficient at a skill, you have to repeat it over and over. You think the first time a chef makes a dish, it comes out perfect? You think the first time someone picks up a camera, they take great pictures? You think when you learned how to write, your writing was legible? I mean, mine's not legible today, but you can imagine how much worse it was when I was 6. Through repetition, we get better and better and better. You see how fast I type? I do like, what, 20, 30 typos a minute. That's fast. Now, that's from decades of typing. The keys haven't moved. That's why I don't care if a keyboard is tactile or not. I don't care. I mean, I'm used to typewriters where the harder you push the key, the harder it struck the paper and you had a bolder print. It was all in your muscles of your fingers. So I'm not a touch typist. I could take it or leave it. But the keys haven't moved. So I can continue to type with more efficiency the more I type. I only get faster. I do get a little lazier. But you don't see me do this, right? I kind of have this weird blend of home row and my own sort of made-up thing that I do, and it works for me. And I'm not the fastest typist in the world, but I'm faster than anybody else I know. So I did know somebody who was faster than me, nearly twice as fast. She was incredible. I think 110, 120 words per minute, ridiculous. I think I was doing 60. But regardless, I don't. It's sort of I'm really having a hard time with words tonight. Sort of a weird nerd flex. Watch how fast I can type. Who cares? You should see me in an ATM. I'm just like, people are like, what? I'm like, hold on, it'll catch up in a minute. The machine buffers it, you know. And, oh, here comes my cash. Have a nice day. Sometimes I go too fast. They end up hitting the cancel button on a machine I'm not familiar with. I'm used to the button being in a certain place. And I've already pressed it as I see it says cancel, and my finger's in motion. I can't stop it. I'm like, oh, I got to do it again. So it's not all flowers. But just a nerd flex is all it is. I type so much. Anything you do a lot of repetitively, you'll just get better at it. Cooking, talking, socializing. I'm really good at sleeping and watching TV. All right, guys, I think we're seeing the questions dry up here, so I think we're good to go. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. And I'm going to finish this tonight and get it cable managed, which should be really easy on that. And I'm going to get it delivered back over to the customer tomorrow. More errands to run tomorrow and errands on Thursday, but I'm hoping the evenings will be opened up so that I can get back to more of this work on camera. I'm tempted to do a lot of this work late at night, but if I don't video it, I'm missing some great content, and I really want to share it with you. So things are getting backed up because I'm saving them for camera time. However, I might not have a choice here if I can't start pushing more out the door than what's coming in. There may be a lot of jobs that I've started on camera you'll never get to see finished, which is sort of more of the same, right? That's nothing new to this channel. There's been a number of projects that I've had to finish off camera. Like Doug Betts, when he left, that whole system was cable managed and all the RGB lights are on. And I shot a video of it, but I didn't air it here. And the reason was I don't want to take the wind out of Doug's sails. If you want to see that, you can go over to Doug's channel. But, there's a series of videos that were made to build this, and then sort of the final conclusion you never got to see here, but you can go see it over there. And in case he never shows it, I have the footage I can show you later after Doug's, had his opportunity to do it first. PD Gamers is asking for the link to Doug's channel. If you just look at the previous Big Beast build, Doug's channel's link is right there in the video notes, although I'm sure somebody in the chat will put it up there. Live Windows training with Doug Betts, if you type it into YouTube search, should also pull that up as well. Thank you guys again for joining me tonight. Thanks for all your contributions, Marty, Peter, a couple of new folks in the chat. I hope you guys will come back again and join us in the chat room and be a regular part of our community. We'd love to have you. Everybody's always welcome here. Everybody who's nice is always welcome. And thank you to all the contributions. Thank you to Kelly Stewart. Thank you to Sari and Planet Cryos, of course, for his continuous support, and others whose names I have scrolled off. Thank you, guys. I will hopefully have some time to come on tomorrow evening or late afternoon and continue with one of these builds. I still have to finish up with Marvin's computer. I've got to finish this one. I got to finish Jeff's computer, and I have to finish Edgar's computer. And I need them all, well, preferably done by Friday. So I may have to skip the regular Friday show just to get caught up. So I would still do a Friday show, but it wouldn't be necessarily a new build, but rather the wrapping up of something I've started, which will be a little bit different, but I haven't decided that yet. We'll see what happens. But thank you again. We'll see you all very, very soon. All my friends in blue, thank you for helping keep Civil in the chat room there and being an amazing piece of this wonderful community. And have a good night, and bye for now.